The House Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration, Integrity, Security, and Enforcement will come to order. Without objection, the Chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. I want to welcome all of you here to today's hearing on the Biden border crisis, North Dakota perspectives. Without objection, Mr. Armstrong, Mr. Kelly, and Ms. Fishback will be permitted to participate in today's hearing for the purpose of questioning witnesses. And will receive 5 minutes for that purpose. And I'll now recognize myself for an opening statement. Again, I want to welcome all of you here today. The subcommittee meets here in Grand Forks, North Dakota, at the request of Congressman Kelly Armstrong. As you all know, Congressman Armstrong has been a leader in opposing this administration's open border policies, and he wanted the subcommittee to come here and listen directly to the people of North Dakota whose own communities have been so seriously harmed by this crisis. This is an official hearing of the House of Representatives, and I do want to lament the absence of any Democratic members or even Democratic witnesses or staff at today's proceedings. This is not the first time that they've refused to participate in our border hearings, and I think it speaks volumes about their attitude toward this unprecedented national crisis. The morning of Inauguration Day 2021, our borders were secure. The Trump administration's Remain in Mexico policy had reduced phony asylum claims to a trickle. The border wall was nearing completion, and we were actually enforcing court-ordered deportation. But by the evening of that very same day, Joe Biden had reversed these policies and thus began the greatest illegal mass migration in history. Since that day, nearly 6 million illegal migrants have been allowed into this country, and while the Border Patrol has been overwhelmed, an additional 2 million known gotaways have entered as well. Put another way, since Biden took office, he has admitted into our country an illegal population the size of 8 states of the size of North Dakota. The laws did not change that day. The presidency changed. Elections have consequences, and this is the most tragic of them. In response, the House of Representatives passed H.R. 2, much of which came from this subcommittee's work. Among other things, it would require future presidents to take the steps that Donald Trump took that successfully secured our border. Senate Democrats killed that while proposing a bill that would actually forbid future presidents from taking the actions that Trump took until illegal crossings exceed 4,000 a day, more than 1.5 million a year. And that so-called bipartisan bill couldn't even pass the Senate. You know, when I met with Border Patrol agents in Yuma more than a year ago, I said to them, the Congress writes the laws, but the president, and only the president, can enforce them. So what laws do you need us to write? And they unanimously answered, we don't need new laws, we need to enforce our existing laws. Now, while the southern border gets all the attention, as the Border Patrol officers have warned us for more than 3 years now, this crisis doesn't stay at the southern border. These millions of unvetted, impoverished, and desperate illegal migrants are being trafficked into our own country, into every corner of it, making every community a border community. And as Congressman Armstrong has repeatedly warned us, this is having terrible consequences for states like North Dakota as well. Mr. Biden has stripped Border Patrol agents assigned to the northern border in order to process millions of illegals at the southern border. That leaves the northern border virtually unprotected and drastically curtails the hours at legal ports of entry that communities here rely upon, tearing apart their commercial and social connections with Canada. The number of aliens illegally crossing from the north, meanwhile, has increased exponentially. And as we will hear, the Border Patrol has now ceased to cooperate with local law enforcement as they encounter criminal illegal aliens in their own communities. Illegal migrants now streaming across our northern border and the mass migration coming up through the southern border combine to doubly tax the resources of states like this one. Across the country, our public schools are being packed with illegals requiring education. Our homeless shelters and social programs have been overwhelmed to the point that services are now being cut or denied for Americans. Hospitals are forced to provide billions of dollars of uncompensated care. Fatal drugs like fentanyl are now flooding our streets. Entirely preventable and tragic violent crimes are reported almost daily. Violent criminal gangs and international crime cartels are now operating in our cities, and sanctuary policies protect these criminals from deportation and, in many cases, from even detention. Today we will hear from North Dakotans who will describe how things have changed for their communities and their state during the last 3.5 years. They will describe increased illegal immigration and drug trafficking, increased worry about who and what is coming across the northern border with Canada, and decreased cross-border economic activity. And here's the fine point of the matter. The President has the authority to stop all this. Trump did. Biden won't. And far worse, it's obvious that this is a deliberate policy of this administration. It's what they promised to do, it's what they have done, and it's what they have defended for 3.5 years. And ultimately, this crisis can only be fixed by replacing this administration with one that is determined to secure our borders, protect our people, and uphold the rule of law. And that can only be done by the American people at the ballot box.